So, hey everyone, happy Friday. Got a good show for you. We're going to wait a couple more minutes. And someone actually commented on one of my videos, by the way, saying like, oh, I love your stuff, but you take way too long to get started. You shouldn't do that. And I'm like, I agree. The problem is people don't agree because live shows, no one's there like at 3 Eastern, like ready for the stuff. Like it pops in. Oh, let me see. They trickle in over a few minutes. Honestly, It's like the first 20 minutes, but I can't just do nothing for 20 minutes or people are going to leave. So it's just a few minutes.
I've done a lot of Twitter spaces and live stuff like that. And yeah, that's been my experience where I'm kind of the person where my preference would be, we say a time and that's when the show is going. Cause everyone's got things to do, and what's the point of having a schedule if you're not there? But I also get like, for the sake of the show, you have to have metrics and you have to have people. And yet it's why am I talking when like, it's only like the first few dedicated people are here,
Yeah. And even then it's like, even the dedicated people sometimes like, oh, I got to go get a coffee real quick and stuff. It's just, It is what it is. It's a fixture of the, Sylvan says, oh, he's been in there since the beginning, but, of course you are, Sylvan.
Like, one of the cool things you could do with crypto is maybe it could be eventually some way that the people who do show up on time or early get something that everyone else doesn't,
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the exclusive content, right, that they get. Which the audio-only versions, I cut this out because people got so mad at these few minutes of like, these few minutes of chitter-chatter. They're just like, get to the point. Just like small audio issues are fine on video, but if it's like an audio-only, like Spotify podcast, people really get annoyed.
Okay.
But and even like the secret sauce here, but like, I usually stream in through Jitsi that comes in here, and because maybe it's a Linux thing, but I could only use my camera with one application, so I'd have to do the camera through OBS, which is viewing me, and then it would be the Jitsi person couldn't see me at all, so they'd be staring at a blank thing, and that's no good. So what I do there is I then have to screen share from Jitsi into my OBS thing just to see it, and this is the first show I haven't because my old webcam is up and working right now, and that's what you're seeing, Jarrod. You're seeing my old webcam. Everyone else is seeing the 4K me.
Okay, whatever. Good, because I didn't want to say it, but when you're like, can everyone tell my video is better? I'm like,
It just looks regular. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, there's Agnew. Hey, Agnew. Yeah, so let me see a couple more minutes. It's funny because like right now I think I have more people watching on Odyssey than I do on YouTube. And that it's kind of one or the other most times, right? Most times people are either watching, it's either almost no one's watching on Odyssey, everyone's on YouTube, or Odyssey's surprisingly right up there or over. I don't know, it's just like the Odyssey people tend to be more temperamental. I don't know. Interesting.
I've never done streaming on Odyssey or YouTube. Odyssey, I'd love to. YouTube, I avoid as much as I can. But usually I do like Reddit streams, Twitter. I was doing Twitter Spaces, but good Lord. And now this was old Twitter, pre-Elon Musk, but like the reliability on that was so bad that I can't do a professional kind of show as a Twitter space. I was interviewing or I do interview like devs and stuff like that, asking technical questions, and then we get rugged, and it's like, I can't do that. And so I went over to I do Discord shows now, but like we're on so many different platforms. I want to find a way to simulcast to many platforms at once. It's just the way the web is right now. It's so obscenely fragmented. It's a headache.
There are ways. The problem is they all charge. And
I want to find a way to do that. Like if I got to game it, figure it out somehow, on the technical side, at least add as many as possible. Right now we can simulcast Reddit and Discord at the same time. It takes a little bit of technical mumbo jumbo, but it's not terrible,
Yeah, the thing is, and this is like the last shop talk before we actually like roll the intro and stuff, but like I know that I used to use Restream, which lets you restream to a couple different platforms. And so if you're using something like OBS, you can your main stream can go into Restream. Now, if you pay Restream, you pay them for it, which if you're a legit, you should, or whatever. Then you can go to like YouTube, Twitter, Facebook pages, Twitch, Discord. I'm sure is on there too, and like maybe even Reddit. It's probably like you can go to all those at the same time, and then there's this multiple output plugin I have installed in OBS that one is going feeding out to Odyssey, because Odyssey's not on these things. So you could just be everywhere.
Well, but, I'm with you, but to me, here's the problem with relying on a paid service, a traditional paid service, especially.
They're gonna screw you.
Well, no, it's that what happens when I get canceled, when whatever I'm saying is verboten, and my entire infrastructure is pulled out from under me. If
That's
it's not
why I do. My entire life, like my video editing software, my broadcast software, my image editing software, my money, my everything is free open source software for a reason.
I love it. Yes, and it's like,
janky. Jitsi that you're in is free open source software. All right, enough shop. Let's hit the intro. There's lots of stuff to talk about. I'll see you guys on the other end of the intro. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Well, hey everyone. Happy Friday. Thanks for watching. We have a great show. Thanks for watching Digital Cash Rundown. It's always a good time. 3 p.m. Eastern every single Friday without fail, except when it isn't, which sounds like fail, but whatever. I'm joined by the one and only great Jarrod Woodard. How's it going, man?
Oh, you're too kind, man. Thank you so much, Joel. And thank you for everybody that's tuned in.
Yeah, and we'll chat a little bit later about how we kind of bumped into each other. But in the meantime, I should let you guys know to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, all that good stuff that pumps the stuff up. This is on YouTube and Odyssey. There's the link to each channel or whatever in the bio, so you can have your choice of which one you want to go to. And also, if you want to leave a live super chat, you should be in my Discord server. And if you have my NFT. If not, you should get my NFT. And you get in the Discord server, go to the Digital Cash Rundown channel, and then you type in stuff, and then that kind of pops up there. In fact, Onetime already posted, says, "Hey guys, I'm here early." Well, earlier than usual, maybe not technically early, but it's always good to have you in here one time. We have a crazy bunch of stuff going on, and let me just jump right to the first article here, which is crypto exchange Kraken faces probe over possible securities violation. And since this article, of course, they've been sued by the SEC, and they have suspended their U.S. only staking offering. This is like hours worth of monologue content from me. So why don't I let you have first stab at this one?
Okay, for the last couple of months, I do a podcast with the Reddit cryptocurrency every Monday, and the last couple of months have been filled with FTX fallout conversation all the time, stuff like that. And so that's the only thing I can think of glaringly in this is just a follow up of, like, of course, the clown show that is the SEC. Is while they were ignoring FTX and rolling out the red carpet for SBF, and mind you, okay, people like Caitlin Long, who's been like a big crypto Bitcoin advocate for a very long time, very professional, out of Wyoming, has been begging the SEC and the regulatory bodies for some conversations, for attention, for some clarity on this stuff, and been getting ignored forever. And she's not the only one. There's many people in the ecosystem, in the broader industry, trying to get some clarity from the SEC, and they've ignored them flat out. But someone like SBF shows up, a prince of the status quo, MIT graduate, effective altruist, okay, shows up. He gets the red carpet rolled out for him. FTX gets completely ignored, despite all the red flags. But they've got time to go after Kraken and staking and that kind of stuff, and to destroy Library. Some of the best actors in this space
Yeah,
And to me, it's this particular it is drama.
of course.
I'm curious, like, I don't know what the coming fall is going to be. The market, of course, has taken a bit of a hit, but the longer, like, is this going to be something that inspires people to get involved and get active? Is it going to be something that has, because I'm looking at other communities, and some communities are like, if proof of stake coins are like, this is great news in the sense that it helps decentralization, because now exchanges aren't going to be holding a large portion of our token, and people at home are going to have to be the ones staking and such like that. So I don't know what the coming fallout is going to be in the short term. I know in the long term, the state's going to keep making mistakes until we build better alternatives.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. It's kind of a giant joke that the SEC couldn't do anything to stop any of the crap that's happening, and then they just go after the good actors because the bad actors have already sort of taken themselves out. It's kind of funny that like the market already destroyed the bad actors, let them destroy themselves, and then so there's only the good ones to come after. But the funny thing is, I guess my everyone knows. I mean, everyone should know at least my liberty perspective, right? What I'm going to say sounds like maybe a soft approach, but it's more. I'm just more commenting on the realism of the situation. First off, I think that this whole like the SECs and the U.S. government are going to destroy innovation in crypto in the U.S. I don't think that's really true. I think they're harming it now, but I think there's going to be limits to how far they go, especially because they're coming after like big players that are well connected, and they don't want to like a lot of constituents of Congress people are just not going to like that all this money is being chased offshore. But more importantly, I'm going to sound like I'm playing SEC's advocate here, which I'm not because they're absolute garbage. One thing that if there was a case for something that the SEC could do to protect consumers, cracking down on custodial staking specifically would fit the bill of a legitimate use. Now, I got to be very careful with the way I say that because, first of all, I don't think that the SEC's ever done any. Well, I don't know everything they've done, but I don't think they've done almost anything useful, and I don't think this latest move on to targeting Kraken specifically is at all good. It's only bad, and I don't think the effects of this are going to be good. So, with saying that, the only thing I'm pointing out though is that I don't think that this is the SEC just like cracking down on all crypto. I think because of the justification, the devil's advocate justification, I think it's more of a targeted kind of a thing against the trash that was already getting taken out anyway, right? I don't think it's indicative of everything awesome being banned in the U.S. So that's, I guess, my realist perspective on what exactly is happening. Not value judgments. Everyone knows my value judgments.
Well, okay, so sorry. So, what's the case there that people shouldn't be staking their coins on exchanges? So, it's a good thing that they're forced not to. I'm not saying you believe that, but that's kind of like hey, if they're going to do something,
or more importantly, I think that they're going at. I would say almost seems like they're showing restraint in the Kraken case as far as what they're going after. They're only going after something that there could be so far. Right, so far. And this is more of a prediction of mine. I think that it looks like they're going after stuff where you could make a legitimate case where consumers have been hurt before in crypto. And I'm thinking that they might kind of not overreach as much as a lot of us are like terrified that they will. That's just my guess here.
I mean, sure, but if you're going after like the low-hanging fruit, like where you can help the consumer the most, help us avoid FTX.
Yeah,
would have been really sweet. If we're gonna make this case of like, there's something they could do that could be helpful, it's like Three Arrows Capital. Like, and look, boys, you need to get done with legacy finance before you ever worry about crypto. All right, they need to catch up with us with integrity and auditability and what can be done. Like, take care of the old world before you worry about what's going on here. That's where I would start. But also like the idea, and I appreciate that, like the way it can seem like in the short term, this could be a beneficial thing. But so I've worked for exchanges, customer support, and gotten into like arguments or devs building wallets and stuff like that. And there's always this argument of like the onboarding experience. And I'm like, I lean more on like, tell people the truth and give them the tools. You know, you ultimately cannot protect people from themselves, you know?
Yeah, of course.
And so like a person having the freedom to make a stupid choice is a feature, not a bug, you know, and that's just, you don't have freedom without that. You don't have that, you know, that capacity. And I'm always like, educate people, tell them the truth, give them like, hey, we can only help you so much. If you don't take the time to learn about what you're doing, there's nothing we can do to help. And so to me, like this kind of stuff is hand holding, and it's how you kind of justify an institution like the SEC to keep existing. And stuff
Yeah,
like that.
Unfortunately. But that one thing that I will sort of so far, right? There, like we get into like Venn diagrams and stuff. Obviously, like the crypto space is doing lots of things, and we have like this, like the cypherpunk ethos. We have like the us long-term crypto people have our own ideas of like what is a good coin versus a shit coin, right? We know what shitcoinery looks like. We know it's like the cypherpunk rules of like not your keys, not your crypto, stay away from pre-mines, blah blah blah, no custodial, blah, blah, you know, like all that kind of stuff. We know those principles, and there is a time when what the SEC and regulators are attacking are the same, with like literal, you know, suing and destroying things, is the same targets of us verbally criticizing and encouraging people to stay away from for a certain amount of time. Right now, those are kind of similar, except for library, of course. And at some point,
I got to push back against that. Yeah, I got to push back against that because I'm with you. Like to me, those are like the second order principles. The first order principle, the highest one, is voluntarism. Is it voluntary or not? Is it a voluntary exchange? And that has to allow for people to make stupid choices.
Absolutely, and I believe that 100%.
And look, if there's a pre-mine in the crypto, does that mean it's some evil, malicious, fraudulent, blah, 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 any of those things? Absolutely not. Is it something you should open your eyes up, get educated about, and weigh the cost benefit of all things considered? Absolutely. You know, and so.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. There's no real disagreement between us on that. I'm talking about kind of like predictions of the landscape of so far, like the SEC is not, I think it's a bad actor, but more importantly, it's an actor with its own aims. And so far it is gobbling up the shit coins and the scam exchanges first. At some point it's going to turn its teeth towards only the good stuff. And like in my analysis of the library case, which I'm streaming to library right now, right? Like clearly I'm not against that kind of stuff. They went after them, and you know, it's kind of been internally admitted sort of because of the pre-mine. And the pre-mine was one of the biggest things I did not like about library, why I like the rest. Of course, the collateral damage is the awesome stuff that they built. But I think that like my way of saying all this, basically what I'm saying in all this is the government sucks. They're going after everything awesome, but it's not time to be alarmed yet to think, oh my gosh, crypto's getting destroyed in the US yet. I think we'll see. We'll see when that happens.
I'm not alarmed to the point of like, crypto's going down, but I don't want the narrative to be like, personally, like, well, at least they're going after the shit coins. It's like, no, buddy. If you were going after the shit coins, you'd be tearing into fiat first.
Absolutely.
Long before you get to crypto. Okay. I see this happen all the time where we talk within our own ecosystem and don't compare it to the broader set of things, you know, and it's like, no, it's crypto compared to fiat first. And whatever's happening in crypto, that's not good is obscenely worse than fiat land. And that always needs to be brought to the forefront, in my opinion. You see like maxis that are like, so of course we knew this was a security and it was going to get blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it's funny because there's like levels of narratives where crypto faithful are just like, government sucks, they do everything terrible, this is all terrible, and I'm there as well. But then there's like the nuance on this way, which is, yes, all that is true. I also, as an analyst of the space, not just an advocate, because there's two different hats here, right? As an advocate, the analyst for the space, it's not that terrible yet. Then there's the next level, which is the maxis who say, well, we don't believe in government, but we believe 100% it's great that they're taking out the shit coins, which I am not on that side at all. And then you get to some maxis that say, well, the regulators do have a role in taking out coins that aren't Bitcoin. And that's really terrible.
No, that's bad actor.
Yeah, and then you have the whole end of this, which is just government. Anything government says goes. Listen to Elizabeth Warren and shut up. And that's terrible. So, like, that's the thing is, like, anyway, well, I think that the staking conversation, what I'm trying to see is, like, the trend that goes out of this. This is obviously a bad move. If Coinbase, if Kraken want to offer this product to their consumers, especially them, I think Kraken is pretty solid. Like, I think they should be able to. But at the same time, I'm also analyzing the space and just seeing, well, as much as this sucks, the positive effect of the silver lining on this cloud of awfulness is that trustless staking solutions are going to come more to the forefront.
Yeah, sure. That is absolutely a silver lining. And also what I could see as a silver, to me, the greater silver lining is, like, you're seeing Coinbase say, we're not going to end our staking service. We're going to fight the SEC. That's sweet, sweet news.
Let's get to that one next. So getting rid of crypto staking would be a terrible path for the U.S., according to Coinbase CEO. Banning retail crypto staking in the U.S. would result in even more businesses moving offshore, argues Coinbase founder Brian Armstrong. So now that I've read the headline, you can go back to finishing that part. No, but that shows that I've structured the show well enough to where the conversation organically flows through the headlines. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So I would like to see people get active, get inspired, get into this, get part of the conversation, and correcting the situation. Like, I don't like whether you think people should, and I think it's. I don't think people should necessarily keep their crypto on exchanges in general, but I think they should have the freedom to. They should have the choice to. And same with staking on an exchange, staking as a service, any of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's just like the library pre-mine thing. It's a 50% pre-mine. It is not a good idea in pretty much all cases. Like, it means stay away from the project, means it's usually. But in library's case, like, it's like super useful, super mission driven. It's like all the great things. So as an informed consumer, I can see, you know what? 50% pre-mine, that's not good, but it all makes sense. I don't need anyone to protect me against that,
Yeah. So what is, like, the historic, like, this principle here of, like, the securities laws with offering unregistered securities or things like that, like, someone's going to offer an investment that I'm going to choose to be a part of or not. And like, look, fraud's already illegal. And the judge made it clear that library was offering a security, but was not engaging in fraud.
Yeah. See, that's where it gets tricky, because that's where it gets, I wouldn't say tricky. It's not tricky at all, actually. But that's where it gets very, that's where you get into the reason the SEC doesn't need to exist, which is, this isn't a fraud case. It's like they're judging pre-fraud. If like pre-fraud. But that's literally what it is. They're saying it's not enough to wait until people get scammed. If people are offering up an investment contract, and it's not fraudulent, but it's not registered, it's not safe. People can scam themselves by investing in this, and we want to protect people from scamming themselves. And that's where it gets all funky and dumb, and I don't think it should exist at all. That's what they were going after, is they're saying, look, library's selling an investment to people, and people are knowingly participating in this investment, but they don't have the consumer protection, whatever, set up. So even though it's above board, they will still probably get scammed. Not fraudulently scammed, just voluntarily scammed. So we must stop that from happening. That's kind of their thinking, which is it needs to go.
No, and here's the thing too. Like I fight the degen DeFi space like left and right all the time, and you get these people who flat out like it's honesty when they say degens. Like I'm not like they know they're just participating in Ponzi. Not they literally like you can go to people's breakdowns of things and like, well, what's the Ponzi-nomics of that coin? Like they know they're gambling. They know this isn't a scam for a lot of these people. Now there's naive people that jump into it, but I'm skeptical as to the actual number percentage of the naive people in there. Where I think most people know it's a dice roll crapshoot, and they choose to participate in it. And in my opinion, it's kind of the Joker scene. You get what you deserve when you play with when you play that game.
Well, that's the crazy thing about like, I think if people get into degen like space like that, they really know what's going on, because you have to have some sort of technical competence to just figure out how to operate the wallets. What I have noticed is a lot of people, I do know personally, some people who've gotten screwed over by FTX, who've gotten screwed over by Voyager, who've gotten screwed over by these other things. About half of them were like crypto savvy, who just were like, yeah, I just had this, I only had it on there because it was a certain coin you could only get there. Or like, well, I knew I was just getting some staking stuff. I was going to pull it off. I understand the risk. I kind of got screwed. That's fine. Half of them are that way. The other half are just like, I did not expect I had a risk of losing money here. Like I thought this was like a bank. I thought I could put some money in, and if the bank went bankrupt, then it'd be FDIC insured, which some of these exchanges have had, I can't remember the exact thing, but some of them have gotten into trouble for like leading consumers to believe they were FDIC insured when they weren't. There was a couple of them had some fishy,
that's
kind of
to
like
me
writing there.
like a special kind of naivety. Like this world, because like, have you not seen the state of the economy? The things that happen left and right all day long. Why on earth would you expect FDIC insurance to actually be there? Why on earth would you expect the state to deliver on what it says it will? Have your eyes not been open? Have you not been watching where the world's gone?
Well, I mean, how would people be expected to think it's a scam if like Tom Brady's all about it?
Good Lord. Yeah, and that like to me, that's just a common sense red flag. I'm like, I'm sorry, how like it's a valuable life lesson. And I've always told people as I onboard them into crypto,
it's a valuable life savings losing life lesson, but yeah.
Hey, that's if you no one can have care about you more than yourself. And if you don't care enough to educate yourself, that's a life lesson. Reflect on that. If your savings are that important to you, maybe spend some time to figure out what you're actually getting involved in.
That's what I think. And the problem is people assume safety because the government is sort of given these protections. And but that's what I'm saying is like, this is the world that we need to get away from, because the government doesn't protect you. And even where it operates, it doesn't protect you. And people need to get back to the buyer beware kind of world of like where the community helps itself out. Like someone says like, hey, should I use this wallet? No, that's a bad wallet. Use the other one. Or like, no, don't you, like where the community helps each other out. And they're like, why don't you read into this or do more research, or that's a shit coin, or, kind of helping them go to where they're going. And like, listen, I hope I don't trigger anyone watching this, because there are some people watching that will get triggered by it. But like, Hex is a Ponzi scheme, okay? And I hesitate to call it a scam anymore, because it's so well documented that it's a Ponzi scheme that if people are participating in it, it's probably buyer beware. They're just higher up the Ponzi, But like, I tell people like there's research on it. Like, okay, you know what you're buying. If you lose if Hex goes to zero, I don't really feel sorry for almost anyone who loses all their money there at that point, because it's so well documented. The crypto space has done a great job of like shunning all that stuff. Richard Hart is like uploading videos of him washing his jeans in a bathtub with his feet and just like weird, like, okay, like to quote the Joker, you get what you deserve. Like
yes,
at this point, like
the guy walks. He's changed his name. All right, this is what I'm talking about. I've been telling people about, like, or people asked me about what cryptos to buy, and I try to give them as best like non-financial advice, blah blah blah, feedback as I can. And it's like, look at the human beings behind the project. Look at their history. Google their name. Have they changed their name? That's a smidge of a red flag. Like this is old knowledge. You didn't have to strike a lot of brain cells to figure this stuff out. If people had looked into Mashinsky, the guy that did Celsius, and looked at his history in business, they'd be like, there's no way on earth this guy has proven in the marketplace that he should be responsible with millions upon millions of dollars.
Yeah.
If anything, oh my God, you would err on the other side of that.
People use weird pseudonyms like the Desert Lynx or something. They're probably a scammer.
But you're here with your real name.
Yes.
Even if you had changed your name, that's not proof. But it'd be like, let me ask you some questions, my friend. But if you look into Richard Hart's past, he was one of the biggest spammers, like the spam king, unashamed about it, absolutely delighted about it. So like, once those things get brought up and you're like, that's cool with you, I'm like, sweet, I wash my hands. You get what you deserve after that.
Yeah.
And if anyone's interested, you can go to Eric Wall on YouTube, has a great thread and breakdown. He's got a history of getting back and forth, or going back and forth with the Hex people. And
think about Hex also, like I know the lead developer of it who started it, and he left the project and he said it's a scam. Like, I built it and it's a scam. And like, okay, so that's enough. At that point, you kind of like, but also that doesn't, I mean, I don't think a scam is necessarily like a really bad investment for everyone. I hate to say it like that. Like, if people like, so like people can say, you know what, I'm going to put some money in here. I know how it works. I'm going to make some money, and eventually I'll get out and it'll do well. Like, I'm sure a lot of people, even if Hex goes to zero, will have done well for themselves because of it. And so they want to do that. They can do that. That's all.
Okay. I have a counter position, my friend.
Okay.
It is a bad investment because it harms your soul to make money that way.
What if you don't have a soul of harm?
Well, you're not an agent. You're not a person, and
yeah.
But yeah, no, like, you should have a conscience, and if you don't, you're not the kind of person I'm speaking to. People. I mean, in general, you're like, someone should have a conscience with these things, and if they don't, then like, hey, you're not part of the people I want to interact with, and I don't care what happens to you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's hit this other bit on Kraken, and then real quick, yeah. Oh, so first off, I can kind of hear myself echoing a little bit in your thing. Maybe your echo thing is going a little.
My speaker a bit, or turn my audio down a smidge.
All right. I can still hear myself, but it's not super bad. Do you have earbuds or something?
Let's see.
Why don't you give that a try? And I'm going to get into this this next story here real quick. And by the way, people, feel free to jump into the super chat at any point and throw in some comments and stuff. And anyway, next one. So, Kraken down. SEC commissioner rebukes own agency over recent action. Commissioner Hester Pierce said today the SEC shut down Kraken's staking program and counted it as a win for investors. I disagree and therefore dissent. So the fun thing about that, this is one of those things that kind of counters popular narratives or easy narratives, I should say. The easy narrative being that government is monolithic and evil and just wants to destroy everything good, including crypto. And a lot of that is kind of true, right? But it's more nuanced. There's some like levels of this. Like, first off, government is absolutely not monolithic. I mean, across the world, there's hundreds of different countries with different state interests. Within the U.S., there are different agencies and actors that have slightly different. Of course, they always want more power and control, right? That's kind of uniform. But in there could be some different interests and stuff. And as we see, even in the SEC itself, there's commissioners who publicly disagree with the decision of the thing. I mean, that's a very strong statement for someone to just come out and say, my company, my organization, my government regulating body that I am a part of, and I am a part of the decision makers of this. I disagree with the decision that was made by this. And so I think that that's it's not like, I think it's a good sign. It doesn't mean that the SEC is ever going to be worth anything, but I think it's a good sign that this will stuff like the shutting down Kraken staking program will be kind of not the rule, maybe an exception, a temporary exception. Like, there's a rule. I think there's hope for there to be something worked out a little bit more reasonable in what's happening. I don't know. Do you have that same optimism?
No, not really, because to me, it's just like it's the theater, it's the governance theater, and it's involuntary governance, and so yeah, we know downstream from that, it is all those bad, terrible things. It can't practically work, even if you did, and it doesn't mean that each and every individual in the institution is some horrible, person. They could just be ignorant. That's quite possible, but. No, to me, this is just like the theater of, we've got this internal pushback and correction and things like that. It's like largely like the left and the right, kind of stuff. It's just, it keeps it keeps the show going. And
interesting. Yeah, it could be. I tend to take people at their word initially, like unless there's some other things. Like, for example, when the SEC says they're there to protect consumers, I'm not going to believe that because they've kind of demonstrated otherwise. I do think that Commissioner Pierce does probably genuinely disagree with this decision. There could be, I'm inclined to believe that. There's like 2/3 of me thinks that. The other third thinks that she's probably setting herself up for a career after the SEC in the crypto compliance space. And she wants to be like, well, I'm on your side, but I'm part of I have ties in there. And then she wants to be in there as a consultant or to help shape regulation for the space from the private sector. Like, there's the
same old disgusting cycle. Yeah, like that guy that helps draft
also,
the New York
it could be
bill.
both of those things. She could honestly disagree and want a kinder, gentler SEC, but also be like, I'm going to put it out there so I get a career after this. That's
true. And I think you've actually made my case more in the sense that, like, she could entirely be honest unto herself, but unconscious of the role she's playing in the greater just like governance theater that goes on.
Yeah, it could also just honestly be. I think that the thing that people don't understand about government is, to a certain extent, the government's a market actor in that it has things it wants and it has ways of getting it, and there's a reason why, like, every single government. This is much more obvious in despotic countries than it is in so-called like representative democracies or whatever, is every dictator knows there's a limit. There's a zero, like they know there's like a binary, like you're the dictator or you're the dead-tator, right? There's like one of two things, and there's a line at which you fall to the other side. And they know exactly how far, or the ones who are still there, right? The ones who haven't been killed. Like Ceausescu was in Romania, was famously bad at knowing where that line was, because he was very popular with his people at first, and then as they started to like starve to death and stuff, like get very upset with him, he just didn't realize it until way too late, and then he flipped over to the other side and they got rid of him. Whereas most successful dictators know where the line is. They know exactly, or they have a better sense of how far they can push their people before something happens. And so I think that U.S. regulators, to a certain extent, even if they're kind of dumb about it, they know if they push things really far, they're going to have like an upheaval. Like people are going to be really upset and then unelect their ruling party, and the other ruling party is going to be like, haha, opportunity to win. I just pander to these guys and I get in. Or they know that there will be massive capital flight out of the country. They're okay with some capital flight, but they know there's some point where it goes.
Is what I would expect, because like historically over the past several decades, like if there was going to be some like taking advantage of the idiocy and malicious actions of one party as some way to propel your party forward, that would have happened. If there was going to be any kind of like, it's been so ridiculous for long, especially post-COVID stuff. It's like, if that were going to happen, and then maybe I'm just like too cynical and detached from it. It's just, yeah, I don't really see that side of it being the case so much. And I hope I'm wrong on that end, in the sense that I know in the long term, government's what direction it's headed in, or involuntary government. But it would be nice if it wasn't so terrible in the meantime for many people.
Yeah, I was chatting with one of my, I guess, ANCAP friends or whatever today about the negotiation phase, where, you know, I'm sure you know how the Overton window works, right? Where, for people who don't know, it's basically if you're a super extremist on one side of things, then you move the center of the conversation towards there. So, like, you know, if you believe in limited government and you believe in not so limited government, that's kind of like, there's that. If you want to move things towards liberty, sometimes you believe in absolutely no government, and then the center, the reasonable center, moves closer towards your extreme side. And so, with this, at some point with crypto especially, and Uber kind of did this too. Uber was one of the best textbook examples in the modern era of this kind of approach, where they went fast and hard and got way too big to fail way too quickly. And a lot of that flagrantly illegal, right? Not just like, well, you know, they didn't like, no, really not according to what happened. They went so far that now when the government gets to cracking down, now it's just like, okay, come on, you can't shut us down. And so now it's a negotiation period. It's like, I'll pay $100 for it. No way. I'm only sitting for 250 or more. And then you haggle down, and eventually you settle on like 165. And then there you go. That's the market. That's the price. And so there's an element of haggling with the government where they want all the power. You want them to give none of the power. And eventually you both settle on them having some of the power.
No, I'm with you there in the sense that there's an opportunity here for the voluntary people, the voluntary governance of the world, to make that case with states, and to have states competing and being like, look, either you're playing with us or we're going somewhere else, because we don't have to do business with you anymore. You know, this relationship is now voluntary.
Yeah.
And yes, I'd say I know what side of that fight I want to be on to help, you know, influence the outcome of that. I don't know what it's going to look like.
Of course.
And so I'm with you there. Like, there is some negotiation room with the state in the same sense that when a burglar's got a gun to your head, you can argue in their best interest, you know, and for your own.
Yeah. If you shoot me, you're not getting anything, dude. Like that kind of thing.
Exactly. Negotiating with the villain doesn't make them a good guy.
Or the burglar has a gun to your head and you have a grenade in your hand, you'd be like, I swear to God, I'm going to blow us both up.
I was about to be like, you know, there's outcomes here that you don't win either, my friend. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why, like, especially like growing up in Mexico, there was more of a perception of the ability for the peasants to turn over the table, just burn it all to the ground. Because after first off, the Mexican Revolution was much more of I don't want to, you know, hate to use this term, but like more of like an illiterate person's revolution. Like the American Revolution was much more of an intellectual's revolution, like like scholars, educated people, high mind. And while there was a lot of that, it was a lot of like peasants, like downtrodden peasants. And since then, there were like the U.S. had one revolution, and then they had a semi-revolution with a civil war, I guess you could say. And that's mostly it. Mexico's had quite a few of these over the centuries. And so the idea of you piss the peasants off enough, they're going to come up and like take your head is much more in people's heads. And so, for example, during the 20th century, it was 90 some years of single party rule. There were multiple parties, but the one party always won the elections because the elections were stolen and everyone knew it. And at some point, a popular politician got assassinated, and that annoyed people so much that that's when Vicente Fox got elected in the 2000 election. It was the first to end single party rule because they knew they couldn't steal the election without having literal blood in the streets. And so there's that, like, let's see how far the U.S. government thinks they can, because they know that crypto is worth a lot of money, is worth more all the time. They know that other countries will get all that money if we chase it out completely. So they just want to hold on to their power, but also hold on to their tax cattle. They want to hold on to it all. And so they're playing that fine game to a certain extent.
But it doesn't take a whole lot of sparking a whole lot of brain cells to know that the decades of the U.S. are numbered, and maybe it's less than that, that it's overextended. It's the natural state of, like, states are suicidal, they're self-destructive on a long enough timeline, and the Pax Americana will come to an end. And there are going to be politicians that position themselves for that eventuality. Like we saw it with I don't know if it was Chinese politicians or business people, but people taking crypto and fleeing the country. That's one of the great things about crypto. And these politicians recognize and know that they don't want crypto to not exist anymore. It gives them options as well.
Yeah. And that's the thing is first off, I personally believe that within the next 20 to 50 years, at least one of the now U.S. states will no longer be part of the federal government, up to the federal government itself going away. I just think that within 20 to 50 years, we will see some sort of an exit because there's already a lot of talk about stuff. There's already a lot of, people, a lot of nullification, like refusing to enforce other laws becoming more popular. There's a lot of more friction. There's a lot. The U.S. empire is starting to become overburdened, and I think it's going to happen. And also,
it's what always happens to an empire.
Yes, and also capital flight used to be more immigration centered, and now you can have digital capital flight, digital expatriation, to where people now, all their lives, their livelihoods, their everything gets offshored through a VPN or Tor or something, and people are still like, now all of a sudden all that money is disappearing from the American economy, so now they're trying to come after people saying, hey, you're actually, well, okay, just because you're working in Spain but you're living in the US or whatever, you still owe this money, and in which case they're going to be like, well, I'm going to move to Puerto Rico, where now it's still kind of the US, but also I don't have to pay those taxes. And then it's just like, well, you know what if New Hampshire decides, we're going to become a territory now. We're done with this whole thing. And then all of a sudden, all the capital pools in there where they, and then it starts to shake apart a little bit,
I agree with you. I'm very optimistic about that. I know that sounds like dystopian kind of doom and gloom, but it's like, no.
Yeah,
this is like before now. It's like everyone was sacrificing, like throwing kids in a volcano. Like, how do we, like, what other kind of governance do we have? This is just the way it is. And it's like, so, on the other side of that is ending that kind of stuff, because it's just regular destruction on a regular basis. And sorry, I lost my train of thought. We're talking about the U.S. breaking up, and the likeliness of that in the coming decades. I'm totally with you there, and I think crypto is going to be a big part of that. To help facilitate that.
Yeah, I mean, stuff changes. Like, things change all the time, and I just in my very short lifetime. I mean, not very, very short. I'm not that young. But, like, in my short-ish lifetime, there's a lot of things that just are mind-blowing. Like, what about, like, the whole, like, advent of the War on Terror and everything that caused across the world, and the expanding of the American empire from, like, a Well, you could call it an empire, but honestly, like to where no, it's more explicitly that way. To then, obviously, I mean, the fall of the Soviet Union was in my lifetime.
Or
Like,
finger wagging with like wars going on in Europe.
mhm.
Meanwhile, like the U.S. has the Monroe Doctrine and kind of what claims half the globe as its safe space. You know, it's just it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and so I do think that like, as I remember in the the first decade about of the 2000s, trying to like figure out how we could like advocating for a gold standard again and trying to figure out how I could use Peter Schiff's little gold debit card and all that stuff. And then
Yeah.
like the crypto 14 years of crypto, right? In those 14 years, not only have I been living off of this stuff, but a lot of people I know have. It's several $1 trillion into, I mean, maybe around $1 trillion right now, but it's like a
Mhm.
giant industry. Several nations, at least 3 or 4 that I can think of, have declared it legal tender, and it's all
Mhm.
this decentralized non-government stuff. Who would have thought? And like, people would have thought we were insane if we say this is possible, you know? And
Isn't
so
that so awesome? Thanks.
so
Yeah, that's a great, great bright pill. Yeah.
yeah, and so I'm like, I'm extremely cognizant of how terrible the world is, but this is things change very quickly, and people forget, like they think that the U.S. is permanent, and it's not. It's
Yeah.
just a thing that was there at a certain point in time, and then the sun did set on the British
Well, and
Empire.
importantly, like it doesn't exist. It's not another person. You know,
Hmm.
it's just a concept, and people play along with it. You know,
Yeah.
and there's people in your life you really care about, really love, and those things are real, and that's great. You
Yes.
know,
So
and we're going to be able to organize
New
in a
Hampshire's been
better way.
here and had humans before Europeans ever came. It's had
Hmm.
Europeans before there was the United States, and it will be
Hmm.
here after there's a United States. It's just the way it is. I
Yeah.
mean, history, time marches on. All right, let's
And
hit
look,
this
and with that
next.
change comes the really great opportunity. Like imagine, Joel, like in our
Yes.
lifetime, if like at minimum to me, the mission of crypto, it's a moral mission, is to
Mm-hmm.
separate money and state at minimum.
Mm-hmm.
And like in our lifetime, we could possibly realize that. Like and
Mm-hmm.
people like this was used to be a regular conversation in crypto, like 2012, 2013. That's how I found crypto, was like getting into like deep moral philosophy, what's right and wrong, how should we live, all that good stuff, and came across this awesome, libertarian money, anarchist money.
Mm-hmm.
And like separating money and state means an end to war.
Yeah,
That used to matter to people. you know?
it does now. Well, let's hit on this local Bitcoins thing. Speaking of stuff that we think never is going to change, local Bitcoins closes down P2P crypto exchange service. Local Bitcoins customers have 12 months to withdraw their cryptocurrencies from local Bitcoins wallet, but are advised to do so immediately. So, how long have you been in the space? What year did you get in? Do you remember?
I bought my first Bitcoin in just the end of 2013. I think it was like $150, and oh
Yeah,
my god, like crypto
right,
boomer
right in
moment.
time.
If you don't mind me sharing, like I had to get money on Dwala, which was like a PayPal kind of thing back then, and then from Dwala I had to send it to Verwox to get
Hmm.
Linden dollars, and then turn Linden dollars. It's like a Second Life money, and then turn
Hmm.
Linden dollars finally into Bitcoin and get that sent to my wallet. Eventually, it was like it's like I feel like the old man shaking his fist about like climbing up the hill to the
Yeah.
snow both ways. It's like you kids don't know how easy you have it.
Well, that's actually a great point on this specific headline, in fact, because
Uh-huh.
local Bitcoins was how a lot of people got crypto. It was just
Hmm.
a peer to peer trading platform where you can say, I'm selling, I have it, and you meet up in person, and then you do a little transfer and you're done. That's how a lot of people did it. Unfortunately, I know a lot of people over the years, not a lot, but not a lot in terms of raw numbers, but in terms of like the severity,
Hmm.
several people at least have gone to prison over peer-to-peer trading on local Bitcoins. I mean, Ian Freeman is a local fellow who does that, who did a lot of that sort of thing. He's facing a lot of legal issues over that. And I know there's a guy on Twitter that I saw who's currently in prison. He still gets to tweet back and forth with me, which is nice. But when he's out, I'm going to interview him about. He just was casually supplementing some of his side income by doing some local Bitcoins trading. Now he went to prison, and like a bunch of people. And so the risks of that, as the government got more involved, got way higher. Where they'd have like FBI or whatever selling you, saying, "Hey, can I get some Bitcoin to buy drugs?" You'd be like, "Sure, gotcha." And there was all that nonsense. But also, as you mentioned, it is so easy to get crypto today, just so easy. And also, the people involved, there's a little bit more clarity, even though it might not be legal clarity, but there's more clarity as far as like, if you buy this with your bank account, you won't go to jail, right? There's a little bit more of that, so it's a little bit less I need to hide this from the government, and more like, well, if I buy it with this, as long as I report capital gains on my taxes, I'm safe. And so local Bitcoins, two things happened. First off, they had to implement KYC checks, which kind of destroyed the entire purpose of the platform. And I don't understand how they hung on for so long after that. But second, they're not needed as much as they used to be. I still think we need a very private peer-to-peer way of buying and selling crypto for fiat, but it was super necessary for the time it was in. And now, it's really sad and nostalgic to see it go, but its time is gone, and goodbye. We'll pour one out for the homies. I don't have any espresso in here. I'll pour it out on my but yeah. Anyway, did you ever use them?
I've definitely heard about local Bitcoins plenty. Great organization, in my opinion, for what it was doing, and never used it. Sad to see it go, like you said. I hope to see people to find a good way to replace it, or to go forward to continue that capacity. And and maybe here's the thing: you don't need a local Bitcoins app to make relationships with people, to go to crypto meetups, to get to know people, and develop relationships there. Relationships are not taxed yet. So it's a lot easier with an app, but you've still got options.
Yeah. So one thing for sure. So I never used local Bitcoins, but I did use Wall of Coins, which was a much more streamlined competitor. That it was less like meeting up in person. It was all, if you put your money in their escrow, and people would buy it and deposit in your bank account right away, and you'd mark by text if you got it. And sometimes it got chaotic. Like I remember when I had a bank back there was like a 9-month period or so of like when I was living all on Bitcoin, but also still was using a bank. And so during that time, like I'd sell some for rent or whatever. And so I remember like selling it, and then like people would be buying pieces of it. I just have all these like 20, 30, 50, whatever dollars like showing up in my bank account and text saying, confirm you got it. It was a little chaotic. But so the experience is so much better. It's so much easier to get crypto. We don't need that as much. However, it is quite difficult to buy specifically. To earn it's different, but to buy crypto privately, right? To get it where you're out of that whole system. And now here's where we get to the tricky part, where it's like, I don't believe it's the government's business what anyone does or what anyone earns or anything like that, and just like screw off. At the same time, that's one of the quickest, like not doing stuff above board and getting busted for is one of the quickest ways to get to prison. So there's like there's the practical, I don't want people to go to prison. So there's those two sides of things. I do think, however,
absolutely agree.
You should be able to buy crypto privately.
There's far too few of us as it is. And it's ridiculous if we live this lifestyle where they're like, here's this great dangerous beast over here, and then we go stick our head in its mouth. Okay, you're not growing your organization, you're not growing your movement if you're needlessly just sacrificing yourself or encouraging others into danger with this kind of stuff. I'm much more on the go do things in the marketplace, create value, show people how your ideas are so much more valuable and better. Taking unnecessary risks is just not a good win, not a winning strategy in my opinion.
Yes, which we do get a super chat from Onetime again. Hey, Onetime. He says, it sucks that the government would put people in prison as a punishment for consensually trading some magical internet numbers. Yeah, and it's kind of weird because, like, if you buy and sell things off of Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or whatever it is, everyone does it. Pretty much no one reports that. And if you do in high volumes of that and you make like profit, then you might get like in some sort of a trouble for like, hey, you didn't report this part. And then you're like, oh, my bad, whatever. That's kind of the way it is. This is the exact same thing, and government considers crypto to be property and not money. However, because it kind of is money, even though they say it's not, it's money transmission, which then is unlicensed, is like a federal crime. You become a felon. And so that's the weird thing, is it's just such a weird situation where because of that, because it's money for money, or because it's, and if I traded a bunch of wax tokens to you for Polygon, because you're like, you know what, I want to buy one of your wax NFTs because I don't like ETH stuff. I want to try it on wax, and I don't have any. I'm like, here, I'll give you some. You give me some. Probably you're never going to get in trouble for that unless you're doing a ton of it and you're charging a fee, in which case, whatever. But as soon as I start doing, like, you send me some money from your bank account to my, in this case, hypothetical bank account, right? And I send you some crypto, and then that's like money. It's like, I've said it so many times, the worst part about crypto is fiat. Just, crypto's great, but the fiat part of it, just interfacing with the fiat world, is the worst part about it.
So
maybe it's fiat's the problem.
No, I absolutely agree there. I try to remind people, like, no one really thinks about this, but like our single most expensive line item is the involuntary governance we put up with, and the fiat comes with that. And I think once more people wake up to that, it's, fiat's days are numbered. We'll have that separation of money and state we've always wanted.
Yeah. And I don't think it's going to make everything sunshine and rainbows, but it definitely fixes a lot of things.
It'll be an improvement, but look at it this way. Look at how much crypto has grown, and we have done that in an adversarial environment where we get the worst side of every side of law. Like, it's treated as a money, but it doesn't get it's treated as money when it's in your detriment, and then it's treated like a property when it's also at your detriment. So we're getting and we got different jurisdictions, different institutions with their hands in dysregulating it. And, we've been surviving in that environment and grown as we have. When that gets clarified, to me, that's a big opportunity for a boom. And to me, clarity doesn't necessarily mean more laws on the books or more regulation. It just means them backing off and acknowledging the virtue of crypto and, giving it its rightful place and staying the heck out.
Absolutely. Things will get a lot better. And we might be seeing that, at least in New Hampshire, which is a good lead into something else. However, before that, I should let's do something I was working on late last night to finally finish up. My NFT page is finally up. If you go to, it's linked in the description too, but dissenter.net, which is my site /NFT. You could buy an NFT and jump into the super chat like cool people like Onetime have been doing. And right now, like, it's on Wax or Polygon. Those are the two ones. And there's the one that just lets you do everything. And then there's the one specifically for the Dash podcast, which is once a month, and one specifically for the Zcash podcast, which is once a month. And of course, you can always like resell these on secondary markets. There's only a few of them out there. And then there's also, if you're looking at the screen, the guest NFT, which you can't buy unless one of my guests actually sells it, because I don't actually sell those. Those are no proof of stake, proof of work only. You got to work it and be on the show. As I've said before, and I didn't come up with that. One of my guests actually pointed that out. He says, it's more like a proof of work. I'm like, good point. I'm going to use that and like not credit you because I forgot who said it. So I can't edit them. But anyway, moving on to this one. I guess we'll start with this one now. YouTuber baits MMA fighter to promote fake NFTs. YouTuber Logan Paul and his CryptoZoo NFT team are facing a lawsuit that they executed a rug pull. And yeah, did you hear at all about the Dillon Danis CoffeeZilla thing?
No, I heard about the Logan Paul CoffeeZilla thing, where basically Logan Paul said he was going to sue CoffeeZilla. CoffeeZilla, I think, countersued or threatened to countersue. It was like, kind of bring it, and then Logan Paul backtracked.
Yeah, there's all that kind of stuff. In this specific case, it was funny because it kind of came to my attention specifically because, so I've been doing like martial arts since I was a small kid, right? And I've been specifically doing jiu-jitsu for like 3-4 years now. And one of the at one point, one of the best jiu-jitsu athletes in the world was a gentleman by the name of Dillon Danis. And he ended up being Conor McGregor's jiu-jitsu coach for a while. He might still be, I don't know. And he's a pro MMA fighter with like a 2-0 record, but he like almost never fights. But he has turned from being like, you know how like the Paul brothers, like Logan and Jake Paul, have been, for lack of they've been heavy into the attention game. Not just like a business or something, but they've been just like talking shit, getting beefs, like just like getting a lot of attention and then monetizing that attention.
I accidentally know that. It's like I've never paid attention to them, but they've been so effective at getting attention that they show up in my feed from time to time.
And so what happened was Dillon Danis, instead of deciding to go as far as he could as a jiu-jitsu competitor, instead of getting really far in the MMA game, actually like winning tons of fights against high-ranked opponents and becoming like that's his career, he's just trying to become famous and like monetize the become famous part and like talk smack, get into beefs with people, try to get into like, he had like some boxing match with KSI that like fell through because he pulled out, but like just use that to generate, just keeps his name out into the news, which is, it's working because we're talking about him. However, one thing he does is he was promoting a bunch of scammy NFT projects and stuff. So what CoffeeZilla did is they just literally scammed him, like literally made a scam, like a scam fake NFT project and got him to agree to promote it for, you know, it's like a $5,000 for a tweet that would be up for 24 hours. And so it's so basically he got him to he basically proved this guy to zero due diligence about what he promotes. He just will take any money. And he promoted this project that when you click on the link, it says Dillon Danis is a scammer and shows all the scam projects he's promoted. So he actually got this guy to show that he didn't do due diligence and expose him as a scammer, all one thing. So I'm pretty sure that was just a very fun.
That's awesome.
A friend of mine sent me that video and it's pretty funny. But like, yeah, it's like the system exploiting itself. If you're going to be that much of a weird, like no due diligence scammer person, maybe someone's going to scam you too.
Well, I mean, that's reciprocity. That's sweet justice, you know, and it's a smidge of reciprocity there. You know, what are your thoughts on CoffeeZilla? Like, I really, really appreciate how he does call out scammers in the space and things like that. But it always drives me nuts when he's like, "This is where we need the regulators to come in," and blah blah. It's like, no, they're the worst scammers of all. Why, if you hate scams?
Yes, I'm kind of way out of the crypto celebrity world. The only reason I know this thing exists is because, first of all, because of the martial art connection, I know who Dillon Danis is, and I and no one likes him, so I kind of like to see that thing. And also, a friend happened to send a video, and then I didn't know who he was until I saw that he was on the Lex Friedman podcast talking about crypto, and I was just like, oh, okay. I still didn't watch that episode, by the way, but yeah. So I don't have a positive or any opinion of him, really. I just thought that was a fun video. Just like there was the other one, and this is like the last little idle crypto celebrity nonsense, but what was the guy's name? There was some kid who talked smack about BitBoy, and then BitBoy freaked out of him, threatened to sue him, and then he got like a bunch of donations,
I remember that.
and then BitBoy dropped the thing.
Because I was doing the Reddit podcast, and like he showed up in the comments and threads
who
to
BitBoy?
like
Or this
a
kid?
BitBoy did to like defend himself, and the people in the comments just tore him up. It was quite delightful.
Yeah, tore him a new BitBoy. So yeah, which I didn't realize that to be as multi-layered as it was.
Oh no! Like, here's another thing that got me. I'm pretty sure it was him because I work in the crypto industry. I help moderate and administrate channels, and if anyone's ever done that, has experience with that, you get people coming out of the woodworks, like bots, scammers, left and right, but also influencers that would just shamelessly send you like, hey, you want me to promote your project? And they'll send you a PDF with like, here's what I charge for this, here's what I charge for this, here's what I charge for this. And I'm pretty sure I saw one from old BB.
Yes, in fact, because some people are Twitter, because some people are lawsuit happy. I won't say it on air, but there is some influencer I tried to reach out to at one point, and he wanted to charge like a ton of money, this was during like the 2018, 29, like that era. So it was like 10 grand to mention on the show, which is pretty freaking cheap for today. Today it's like, I think BitBoy's like 40 grand or something just to mention it type thing. And like a whole sponsorship is like,
and here's
who the hell
thing.
is paying this?
We've got this society of people that let themselves be the product. And it's like, God, how are you enriching these people? Like the people that elevate someone like that, I don't quite get it. You know?
Yeah, it's pretty insane. All right, let's hit on this like New Hampshire thing real quick, and then talk on a little bit about that stuff before we wrap up. So New Hampshire could become an alternative for crypto firms moving to the Bahamas. The state commission recommended that New Hampshire eliminate the gray area in which cryptocurrency companies currently operate. Now, this is Governor Chris Sununu's crypto commission, and recommendations, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you can look into this a little bit more, but New Hampshire is an interesting spot because it's kind of the birthplace of a lot of the crypto movement. Because for those who don't, I mean, obviously I'm preaching to the choir here, but to tell everyone else, because of the Free State Project, a lot of like hardcore libertarians moving to New Hampshire, it became a great breeding ground for like a crypto community. And Free Talk Live, which is a radio show run by Ian Freeman and Mark Edge, that they were one of the first. So they had Gavin Andreessen, who was like Satoshi's heir, come up and go in studio and appear on Free Talk Live, talking about this whole Bitcoin thing back in 2010, I think. It was like way back in the day. And they gave them some Bitcoin at like a few cents. It was like 20 cents a Bitcoin or something. It was something really low. And then they talked about Bitcoin on the show. And that's where Roger Ver, Bitcoin Jesus, first heard about Bitcoin, was on this New Hampshire show. And so then that just ended up, he became the first crypto angel investor who just, bootstrapped a whole bunch of companies, really got the space going. Eric Voorhees of Shapeshift fame used to come to our crypto meetups in Manchester. Charlie Shrem used to come to those too. One time I think Vitalik Buterin came up. That was back when he was working for Bitcoin Magazine before he started Ethereum. He came up to the meetup, and then there's some pictures of some of us showing him around Keene and stuff. And so, it's Bruce Fenton's up here. Melton Demirs is up here.
No, I remember in 2013, Vitalik ostensibly being at PorcFest and reading and hearing about that. This was before Ethereum.
Yeah.
I think at the time he was excited about doing tokens on Bitcoin via something called, and they were calling them colored coins.
Yeah, is it's probably a problematic language, but they moved on to something else. Coins of color. Anyway.
Coins of color.
But there's deep roots here, and then way back in the day, New Hampshire was one of the first places to have actual crypto legislation go through. That was, and I think the first wave of it, what I've heard from some people who were part of it now, said that some of it might have been phrased naively in ways that complicated like regulations later. But I do remember a few years ago, like when he first got to be governor, like Chris Sununu holding up like a banner with like Dogecoin, Litecoin, Dash, Bitcoin, Ethereum, like logos all over, like as they sign this thing. Since then, there's been a new wave of bills, and I think some of this is because the landscape of what regulation around crypto should look like to make a favorable environment has kind of become a little bit more clear, and places like Wyoming, especially, have started to make some model legislation that kind of seems interesting. And so, for example, this week or this last week, there was an anti-CBDC bill that came out that I testified about, and then there's a DAO bill going through the Commerce Committee right now. Again, all this is public, right? You can check it out, and I'm, with a lot of like very technical terms, and I'm hopefully going to help some of those legislators understand the concepts a little bit better. But then I think that New Hampshire, I mean, obviously the commission, the governor's commission, and their recommendation can really help this, but I also think that the legislators in New Hampshire are much more. There's a big push to pass bills that are very crypto heavy and crypto forward, despite being like a largely like older and like rural kind of state, not like a tech hub like you could say like Miami or something might be, for example. So basically, I think that I really hope that this becomes a crypto hotspot. I mean, it already is because, I use it. A whole bunch of people use it, but I'm saying a crypto company hotspot. I hope it becomes a place for, stuff like that.
So I've lived that, and there's a great opportunity here that New Hampshire could take advantage of. My small town that I live in. So I've helped move and convinced to move. We've got like 8 people up here now that just friends of mine I knew online. We shared values, and I made the case for like, hey, let's concentrate. So kind of like I did like a micro scale of what the FSP is doing on a larger scale. And there's a great opportunity here for people who feel disenfranchised and unappreciated in many parts of the California tech world, where if you're the wrong kind of person, they don't like you. So it's like, awesome. Come out here, enjoy freedom. You're out in the sticks, but we have good internet, and there is an obscenely great opportunity here. Like, so I've got these buddies here. They're high level engineers. They're bringing, a good amount of value to the local economy. And let's see. Oh, and one buddy who's like, sorry, I don't want to go into details. I'm not going to share like my friend's personal stuff, but needless to say, of the 4, they're all bringing like high skill, high value to the area, and this is just, when I moved to New Hampshire, people were like, you want to move up where? Like, no one goes there, but like, no, I think it's pretty glorious.
Yeah. But I really would love there to be like a crypto hotspot that's not like our own little secret. Like, I like there to be one that's like nobody's secret. And there are people that have been coming through, and there's some bigger names that moved up recently. And unfortunately, one of the biggest companies in crypto was Library Inc. in here. And unfortunately, I don't think that, I don't know, we'll see what happens with that. But then also Lamasu, the first ever Bitcoin ATM, was created in Manchester. It's from here.
I didn't know that. I've known of Lamasu for a while.
The founders don't live here anymore, as far as I understand, but they still started in New Hampshire. There's like a lot of cool stuff coming out of here, and I want to keep that going, especially because I think at this point, like a small committed group of people are here to promote freedom. The local populace is very live free or die. Even the people who I don't agree with 100%, people on the on the conservative side or the Democrat or the Democrat liberal side, they tend to be like less like more reasonable than elsewhere. And then if you get,
that's been my experience.
There's not a lot of large capital in the state. It's a well-off state, but it's more small capital. It's more like, upper middle class. There's not like a bunch of big industry kind of things here. There's like a couple, and I'd like to bring some more of that can help influence it in a good direction too.
Maybe. I mean, I could see that going either way. Like, once the money comes in, the attention comes in, I could see like the interests there to kind of corrupt the nice thing we've got going. I could totally be wrong about that. I think there's great opportunity to get people that are interested in just in having and raising a family and living, in peace with other people and enjoying liberty. And they don't need big offices packed with people to get that going. It's, you can do open source projects online. They could all be working from their home and building the technology the future is going to work on.
Yeah. And I mean, there's always that like conservative, I don't mean like politically right by saying conservative. Yeah. There's that conservative attitude of like, well, we got a good thing going, let's not screw it up. The thing is,
okay, so when I moved up here, I was talking to my neighbor because I'm like, okay, is this area, is this place like what I wanted, what I expected it to be? And I did like, there was a certain amount of like skepticism of someone new moving in. And so my neighbor was like, are you going to be here a couple of years? Because a lot of people like one winter and they're gone, and just and being used to what's it called? I'm sorry, I can't think of the name. Basically, where someone comes along and like, man, you got a sweet thing here, but you know what you need? You really need a little bit of this regulation, like where I came from, and so it was nice to see in the general population.
Californication.
I'm sorry?
Californication. We have Californians coming in and screwing it up.
That's true. That's in this case, it was New York massification.
Yeah. I've seen a bunch of bumper stickers say like New Hampshire, don't mass it up.
Yep.
Yep. That's the
that's the go-to. And so, but California as well. And so it was nice to see that. I think New Hampshire has survived amongst it being surrounded by states that aren't the same liberty-wise. In that level of the culture, like it's just part of the normal culture here, which is wonderful and something I've never experienced anywhere else. And I think I've lived in like 8 or 9 different states.
Yeah, I mean it's a unique spot, and it's really on a lot of levels. It's really hard to want to leave. For even temporarily, like to go travel. It's sometimes like I like to travel sometimes, but like it's got something very particular. And everyone if you want to leave any more super chats, we're coming up towards the end, so we might as well get those in. Just heads up. And anyway, this might be a good time for the present time. No time like the present, right? So as I mentioned, every single I power the super chat elements of this show and like the internal discussion forums and all that kind of stuff. It's invite only. The only way you get an invite is through an NFT. And so I do sell these, as you just saw. But I also let people, that's the proof of stake element. I do the proof of work element, which is I let people come on the show. And as a token of gratitude for you coming in, helping out, you get the Digital Cash Rundown guest NFT. Yay, everyone give them a little round of applause. And I just put that up on the screen. A nice shiny golden mic spinning in circles. And you just get me your address, either Polygon or Wax, and I'll get that sent to you. And then you can just jump in, and then you can be in the super chat even when you're not on the show and participate.
That's awesome.
So
that's cool.
Yeah. So thanks very much for being on. This has been a pleasure. Anything else you want to cover before we either get super chats going in or have to wrap up?
Oh no, man! I've enjoyed being here, and I'd love to hear from your audience. Like, what do they like about the show, or whatever feedback they got? That'd be awesome. Or what questions they got? That's awesome. Yeah, I love that part of the show.
Well, and then in that case it's Shill o'clock. So why don't you shill everything you want to? Anything where can people follow you and find out more about what you do? Is there anything you'd really like to promote in this moment? And just open forum.
Oh my gosh. Well, philosophy and liberty first and foremost. And so I work professionally within the Tezos ecosystem. Tezos is a proof of stake, smart contract chain, lots of cool things going on there. It's, I think right now most predominantly known as the greatest, like the most authentic kind of like artist NFT communities. And, we've got a lot of cool stuff coming up. So Tezos is the elevator pitch. The claim to fame is on-chain governance, which has worked. It's with Tezos has a culture of that. Started, in 2014. Actually launched the chain towards the end of 2018, and just regularly since then, roughly every 3 months, we vote on and either include or not a proposal that upgrades the chain. And so we've been doing that for a long time. We go, I forget which one we're at now. It's like the 16th chain we're on. We go like every upgrade gets a letter, and with a city name. So it's like Athens, Babylon, Carthage. We're up to Mumbai is the next one. And that is going to include, so we've been including bit by bit the code for rollups. Mumbai comes along and it's going to full-fledged that to the capacity of, and you take this with a grain of salt. You don't believe it till you see it. The rubbers meet the road. But I trust these devs. They've been great. 1 million transactions per second. Now that's layer 2, of course, and that's simple transactions. That's not, from my understanding, that's not necessarily covering like smart contract calls, NFTs, things like that. But that's, to me, like really awesome stuff. And of course, with those rollups, you get things like the opportunity for EVM or any other chain, like a general computational environment to where most anything can run within that layer 2 environment. And the reason you want to be interested in Tezos layer 2 rollup solutions is that they're enshrined. They're in the protocol level. There's not some extra token that comes with them. So they get the undivided, they get the attention of the core protocol right there, and that layer and level of security, which in my opinion is the way it should be done, from the get-go. And see what else. Oh, and by the way, I know like I have some rather spicy opinions here and there and things I say, and I just want to say that like those are my own personal thoughts and opinions. They do not necessarily reflect the Tezos community.
Yeah.
So,
bunch of status in that community, I bet.
Yeah, and I work for Tezos Commons, which it's not the Tezos Foundation. We're a nonprofit that works with the foundation, and yeah. So other than that, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything else I want to shill. But if you believe in voluntarism and philosophical engagement and peace and liberty and all that good stuff genuinely, then come on up to New Hampshire.
Yeah. So we did get, apparently your conversation did spark some question stuff. Hilawe commented, what cons have you seen with on-chain governance for code implementation? On the surface, at least, it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. Oh, that is a great question. Okay,
Hilawe's
so on-chain governance with code implementation is, and if I don't answer this or you're looking for a different aspect of it, please, ask another question. One of the bigger kinds of, it's not necessarily a con, but it's a trade-off kind of thing, is that when you do change that fast and update things that fast, it's like now all your documentation needs to be updated. And, there's going to be orders of that documentation that gets, from the core documentation down and throughout the ecosystem. That's one aspect of it, is and like I said, I think it's a worthwhile trade-off. It's just something to be taken into account. Other than that, there's actually the nice thing about being able to upgrade fast, and that's in relative terms, we're talking about several months here. But it's like, let's say you want to include a piece of code or an idea, you don't have to wait years and years and months. You can include it, pardon me, and then if it's not good code, or it's not a feature you want, or there's a problem with the feature or whatever, you can remove it, and you get to learn that much faster. And so an example we saw there is like, and credit to Ethereum, they did go to proof of stake, but it took, not to say like there's a big moral game about proof of stake versus proof of work. I'm, personally indifferent on that.
Yeah, I think there's a gain to doing what you said you were going to do.
That's true. Yeah. But it took like years and years and years. Like I remember working at Coinbase and seeing like back in 2017, like the Ethereum team showing up and doing a video and like how we're going to proof of stake, and I used to be like 2022. I'm like, where's that at? They did finally go to proof of stake.
Yeah, that's definitely like, I know how it's like to have like that long patience of like stuff's never going to happen, but yeah. All right, so maybe that's a good time to like fully wrap this thing up. Thanks so much. Hit me up with your address. I'll send you an NFT. I'll get you into the Discord. You can come and like talk smack to anyone else during other shows. Like I did it better, and I will have to leave it up because it's contractual.
Yeah,
So
I'd like to hear some more about Dash. So I'll ask because I'm really curious about DAOs. DAOs are the future to me. It's a great thing. And like in my opinion, if you want a good like career to focus on, I'd get learning about DAOs. I think that's a pretty awesome thing. I think it'll be pretty influential.
And I have to admit that DAOs are one of the weaker spots of my knowledge, paradoxically, because I kind of got involved. My first actual involvement being part of any DAO was the Dash DAO in 2016, really way back in the day. And since then, that's been like most of it. And I've interacted with like the Zcash systems, which is not really a DAO, but whatever. Most of like we're in the golden age of DAO today, and I'm kind of using the older stuff. And so
to me, that's what's beautiful about it is that's one of the original DAOs, and I'd love to hear like what was that like,
Yeah, and what is that like, and what's working and what isn't, and like it's all a lot of interesting stuff. Okay, well, anyway, let's wrap this up. Thanks very much for being on. Remember, everyone, not your keys, not your coins. Taxation is theft, and live on crypto. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.
Thanks.